So namaste again, everyone, and it's good to be with all of you this morning. This is our fourth class, uh, and we are, of course, studying Kena Upanishad. I wanted just to respond quickly to a question that, for clarification, that came up from our last class. And this was, I mentioned that the body in our tradition is understood as composed of the five great elements, the earth or minerals, Agni, fire or heat, Apaha, water, Vayu, air, and I also mentioned space or Akasha. And so this question was about space. And this person said, I understand the four elements, but I don't understand how space is a part of the body. I think that there are many ways, to think of this. Of course, we occupy space, the body occupies space. But what I really wanted to say specifically is that in the Hindu tradition, when we speak of Akasha, which is the Sanskrit word for space, and of the five elements as described in the Upanishads, especially in Taittiriya Upanishad, Akasha is the first of the created elements. So Akasha, or space in the Hindu tradition, is not the absence of everything. So sometimes, we think of space as absence. But space in our tradition is the most subtle of the five elements. So space is a reality, but it's a very subtle reality. And we speak of subtlety in relation to in relation to the availability of an element for experience through the senses. So when we think of minerals, earth, the five senses operate. We can see, we can hear, we can touch, we can smell, we can taste. And as we go up the ladder of the elements, so water, fire, for example, you can see fire, you can touch fire if you wish, you can feel fire, but you should not try to hear fire, or you should not try to taste fire. And then when we come to Akasha, in our tradition, it is said that it's available only, its reality is known only through one sense organ, which is Shabda or sound. So in the Hindu tradition, Akasha is understood as the element is necessary for the transmission of sound. It's not only air, but Akasha is understood. So I just wanted to say that Akasha also enters into the composition of the body as the most subtle of the five elements. It is not the absence of everything else. It's an actual material. It is materialistic. It's also a material, but the most subtle of the materials. So with that, let us now continue our discussion of this beautiful Upanishad text this morning, Kena Upanishad. We have reviewed together the question which prompted this text. You will recall the student comes to the teacher, and we assume that there is a group of students, and he asks him, Kene shitam patati preshitam manaha. What is it that empowers the mind, impels the mind to go out, to conceive thought, to think, what is it that causes imagination, rationality, the thinking process? Kena prana pratama. What is it that allows us or enables us to breathe? What is it that vitalizes the pranas, the breathing process? But we can include all of the physiological processes of the human body. Kene shitam vacham imam vadanti. Vach or speech. What enables me to speak, to hear? Srotram. Kau deva yunakti. What is that shining being, deva, that makes all of these possible? And in our last class, we were discussing now the Rishi, the teacher, begins to answer. And his answer was, Srotrasya srotram, manaso manoyad, vacho havacham sau pranasya prana, chakshusha chakshuhu, atimuchya dhira, pretyasman lokat amrita bhavanti. What an exquisite answer he gives. I hope that you will see that as I get very enthusiastic when I study and teach an Upanishad, you see that this is not an ordinary discussion. You see the profundity of the teaching here in the text. So instead of answering the student's question, his student's question, by giving a new word, he could have easily said, well, it's Atma, but he doesn't answer him in that way because, but if he gave him a word like Atma, he would not have helped him. He says, okay, it will become like, what we call a catechism. You have question and you have answer. So the students would have asked, what is it because of which I see? What is it because of which I hear, I talk, I breathe? And then the teacher says, it is Atma. So the student goes away and says, okay, now I know. I have a word, that's all you get. You got a word. The answer is Atma. But that word does not bring you closer to understanding, right? Knowing the word does not mean that you have understood. So he chooses, and this is what I want you to see. Instead of giving him a new word that will not mean much to him, the teacher answers very differently. It is the air of the air, srotrasya srotram, manaso manoyad, it's the mind of the mind. It is chakshusha chakshuhu, it is the eye of the eye. So what does the Rishi, the Guru, wants to convey in this answer? The air of the air, srotrasya srotram, of the air, it is the air, is that without which the air is not an air. In other words, it is that without which the air has no capacity to receive sounds. And without the capacity to receive, the air is just a physical organ. It is just a material organ. So the air of the air, therefore, srotrasya srotram, is that we should understand, without which the air is not an air. It has no capacity to receive sounds. And in the same way, we can extend this to all of the organs. Chakshusha chakshuhu, the eye of the eye, is that without which the eye will not see. And similarly, it is the mind of the mind. The mind of the mind is that without which the mind cannot think, it cannot conceive, it cannot imagine. So all of these, in this answer, we are to understand that the mind, the five senses, and all the organs of action, because the student was asking also about the organs of action. He asked about prana, and he asked about speech. How do I breathe? What is it that enables me to breathe? What is it that enables me to speak? So we are to understand that these are all instruments for seeing, for hearing, for tasting, for touching, for smelling, for seeing, for breathing. These are all instruments, and these instruments require something that is more fundamental for the instruments to function. So the question, therefore, is what is that upon which the senses depend and without which they are unable to perform their respective functions? So as I explained, if we take one sense organ to illustrate this, say let's take the sense of seeing, the eyes, chakshusha, and I wanted to see a book. The act of seeing requires an object. So this is an object. This is the book. Then it requires an organ of seeing. In this case, it's the eye or the eyes. So the object is the book, the organ of seeing is the eye, and it also requires, third factor, an attentive mind. Because if I hold this book before me, but my mind is elsewhere, I will not see it. If you spoke to me and my mind is elsewhere, I will not hear you. And you will say, but I was right there. How could you not hear me? Because my mind was inattentive. My mind was absent. So we require the object, sense organ, appropriate sense organ, and therefore, of course, the mind with the right thought. This is a book. So these are the three factors that are necessary: mind, the object, instrument, mind. But here we see something more. What more is necessary? So here in Kena Upanishad, the Rishi is saying there is something more. There is another factor. And that factor he's describing as the eye of the eye, the air of the air, the mind of the mind. So when I say I see the book, the object is present, the instrument is present, the mind is present, and this fourth factor is present. And that fourth factor we described last class as awareness, or some teachers prefer consciousness. In Sanskrit, we say Chetna. Chetna means consciousness. Chetna means awareness. So there is no seeing, there is no hearing, there is no touching, there is no smelling in the absence of this fourth factor, Chetna, or awareness. Without the presence of awareness, the instruments are just instruments. There is no seer, there is no hearer, there is no taster, there is no smeller, there is no toucher. So what we have said about the act of seeing, therefore, we should understand that this holds true for all of the senses and holds true also for the mind. So hearing requires a sound, my voice, you're hearing. It requires an instrument, your ear. It requires your mind to be present. So if your mind strays for one moment from what I'm saying, your ear is within the reach of my voice, but you don't hear because the mind is not there. So you require sound, you require the instrument, you require the mind, and require Atma, awareness. Same with tasting. Sweet or sour, you require a taste, you require the tongue, you require the mind, and Atma. So we can apply this to each sense organ, apply it also to the mind. Without its presence, no act of perception is possible. No thinking is possible. So in the Upanishads, therefore, the word Atma, we must understand, refers to this awareness, the awareness that is necessary and which makes all perception processes possible. It is the very nature of awareness, Atma, to make things known, to reveal things. This is exactly what the word Chetna means, that which reveals, that which makes everything known to us, all objects, all sense objects, all thoughts. And this is why also in many of our texts, it is the metaphor for Atma is light, Jyotihi. Jyoti Shama Pita Jyoti, Bhagavad Gita says. It's a light because of which everything is known. Forms are seen, sounds are heard, sensations are felt, scents are received, and objects are tasted, and the mind can think. So Atma, and I will explain further, because in a sense the text is centered on this teaching. Atma is awareness, which makes everything known. In that sense, we can say it objectifies everything. For it, everything is an object, but as we will see, Atma is never an object. It is always, we say, it is always the subject. It objectifies everything, but it can never be itself objectified by anything else. I have often explained this, even as recently as when we studied together the Nirvana Shatakam, with a beautiful verse from a small text from the tradition. This text is also attributed to Shankara. I give these illustrations because, you know, sometimes when you are studying, one example doesn't work for you, and then I will use another example in an attempt to help you to grasp what the text is saying. So this text, you know, that I often quote from is called the Drig Drishya Viveka. You know, separating the seer or the Drik from the Drishya or the known, the seer from the seen, separating the subject from the object, separating the knower from the known. And so he starts off this text with this very beautiful verse, you know, Sanskrit verse, Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik, that a form is seen, like the book, form is the, Rupa is called form. So Rupam Drishyam, yeah, a form is seen, Drishyam, and asks, who is the seer? What is the seer? He says, Lochanam Drik. So eyes are called Lochana. So a form is seen, the eye is the seer, the physical eye. But then he says, but this physical eye, tad drishyam, this is also an object. This is seen. This is known. You know, I am aware of my eyes. The eye is the instrument of seeing. It helps me to see the book. But the eye itself is seen. Tad drishyam, that is seen. And by what? Tad drishyam, then it says, driktu manasam. Manas, the mind. So with the mind, I become aware of my eye or my eye. So eyes, I see the object, mind sees the eye. Tadrishyam lochanam drik. Mind is the perceiver. But drishya, dhivritta. But the thoughts of the mind, the vrittis, vritti means thoughts, the thoughts of the mind, the movements of the mind, the motions of the mind are seen also. I'm also aware of these. So drishya, dhivrittaya, who sees? Who sees the movement of the mind, the vrittis of the mind? He calls it here, Shankara says, Sakshi. Sakshi means the witness. Sakshi is a term for Atma. Sakshi is a term for Chetna Atma, the Atma that is Chetna, that is awareness. So he says, Drishya Dhivrittaya Sakshi. And who sees the Sakshi? Who sees this witness? So he finishes this verse with a very beautiful phrase, Drig eva natu drishyate. Drig eva natu drishyate. Don't ask. It is never seen. It is always the seer. Drig eva, eternal seer, eva, always. It is always the seer, never the seen. Drig eva natu drishyate. Very beautiful. Must remember that phrase, Drig eva natu drishyate. So in this verse, as I told you, this first verse says in precise and beautiful form the whole of this Kena Upanishad. It speaks about the nature of the Atma. It, of course, in speaking about the nature of the Atma, it communicates to us knowledge of the Atma. So it deals with the nature of the Atma. We say Atma Swabhava. Swabhava means nature. It reveals the nature of the Atma. And in doing so, it transmits to us knowledge of the Atma. Jnana. And it also mentions the fruit of this knowledge. Atma Jnana Phala. And that comes in the last part of his answer. Atimuchya dhira pretyasmat lokat amrita bhavanti. What is the fruit of this knowledge? Here he mentions one very important fruit, amrita. Amrita bhavanti. One who knows this truth, he calls him the dhira. Dhira is a very beautiful word, dhira. Dhira means, those of you who have studied Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, Sri Krishna there uses the word stita prajna. Stita is the dhira. So stita prajna means one whose knowledge is clear and well established. Stita, firm. For one who has well established knowledge is called in Bhagavad Gita stita prajna. And in Upanishad, the Rishi says it's a dhira, firm, with clear understanding. So atimuchya dhira pretya smart lokat amrita bhavanti. The dhira who understands this, gains freedom from debt. Amrita, freedom from debt. So we are going to explore this line in more depth and detail this morning. So what is the freedom? Atimuchya dhira, atimuchya, freeing. What is it that this dhira frees herself or himself from? And how does this result in the attainment, amrita bhavanti, in becoming amrita, in becoming immortal? This is what we want to understand today. So the freedom that the Rishi speaks of in this verse is the freedom from, freedom. There are two dimensions of freedom. We'll speak about one dimension a little bit later in the text because it comes there. But that's freedom for, and there is freedom from. So when we speak that we are free, we can ask, what are you free for? And you can ask, what am I free from? So here he speaks of, in this part of the verse, the focus is on freedom from. Freedom from. So what is the person who knows this free from? So the general answer is that she or he is free from avidya. Avidya, free from ignorance. And what is that ignorance? Is the freedom from the ignorance of wrongly identifying the eye of the eye with the eye. Wrongly identifying the air of the air with the air. Wrongly identifying Atma with Anatma, with what it is not. So the Dhira is the one who knows, as we are studying here, one who knows that Atma is not the eye, but the eye of the eye. It is not the air, but the air of the air. It is not the organ of smell, but that which enables smell to take place. It is not the mind, but the mind of the mind, that which enables the mind to think. So to recognize the difference between the eye of the eye and the eye and so on is knowledge, is jnana, is wisdom. Because there is a problem here that all of us know and all of us experience. And what is that problem? The problem is a natural problem. There's nothing to, it's not because we are somehow fundamentally defective or deficient as human beings. This is a natural problem. That's a universal natural problem, which means it is a characteristic of all of us as human beings. Because there is this very close, intimate relationship between the Atma, which is you or I, awareness, Chetna. I'm repeating the words so that you will remember them. Because there is this very close and intimate relationship, there is nothing closer, in fact, between the Atma as awareness and the senses, the mind, the organs of action. It is easy to mistake one for the other. It is easy to confuse the characteristics of one with the other. And this is big. If they were two completely separate and distant realities, if the eye of the eye was completely separate from the eye, you will not confuse them. But because they exist in this intimate relationship, this confusion takes place. And therefore the confusion has to be cleared up. And the Dhira is one who frees herself from this confusion. So let me give you a little example. And this is an example I'm using because it's an example that's used by Shankara himself, in his bhasha, in his commentary, to explain this problem. He says, suppose someone took a round iron ball, round ball of iron, and placed it in the middle of a very hot fire and left it there for a while. What happens? This iron ball, which is black in color, gets red, so it becomes a red round ball. And someone who comes by, and then is taken out of the fire and placed on the ground, and someone comes by and says, "Oh, you have a red round ball. You have a red round ball." So the problem here is that the roundness is a characteristic of the iron ball, and redness, heat, is a characteristic of the fire. But now you say this is a round red ball of fire. So fire is not round and the ball is not red, but they are in close proximity, and therefore the characteristic of one is attributed to the other. Okay, so both are now wrongly identified with each other. The ball is not red, fire is not round, but the ball is taken to be red and the fire is taken to be round. So therefore, one has to understand the distinct characteristics of each one. So there are many examples our teachers give, like, a crystal. Crystal is colorless, but it takes on the color, it appears to take on the color of whatever object is placed next to it. So colorless crystal can appear to be red, it can appear to be blue, it can appear to be green, or brown or black, because of its close association with an object that possesses color. So in the same way, the senses, the mind, the body is in this close relationship with Atma. Atma is present in and through it all. And because of that, Atma, the eye of the eye is taken to be the eye, is identified with the eye. So, and then one says, I don't see well. I can't see. Now, the defect belongs to the eye, the EYE. But then if you say, I don't see well, then you are attributing that defect to Atma, which is free from all defects. And the same with all the organs of the body. So, follow me carefully. The body appears to be sentient, Chetna, though it is not Chetna. It shines, let's put it in this way. It shines because it borrows. It's a borrower. The body is a borrower, So you have, if you borrow, you say in Hindi, Lena, you take, there's always a giver, Dena. To borrow, there must be someone who gives. So Lena requires Dena, Lena, the giver and the taker, the giver and the borrower. So the body is a borrower of sentiency. The body is a borrower of awareness, of Chetna. And so you think, and when that happens, then Chetna Atma is confused with all of the qualities of the body. My skin, I can touch, my skin, and I feel a sensation of touch because Atma is present. I can hear when you speak because Atma is present in the air. So what follows from this, if that which is, let me put it in this way. So I'm using the word Chetna for Atma. Chetna, sometimes we say Chaitanya. Chetna means consciousness, means awareness. Achetana, which is the negative Sanskrit, the achetana is that which is inert. So achetana can't give chetana. That which is inert cannot make something conscious. But chetana can appear to be conscious if it borrows from, achetana can appear to be conscious if it borrows some chetana, Only light can illumine darkness. So all of the organs of the body, we are all borrowers. We bask in the light of awareness that comes from this one source. That beautiful mantra from Kena Upanishad, na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kuto yamagni. And the last line, tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvam idam vibhati. Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. Because you shine, because of you who are awareness, tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. Everything shines. Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvam idam vibhati. Because of your light, there is light in everything else. See, it's a very beautiful mantra. So we can say, therefore, and I'm anticipating, because this first verse is, as I said, it's the essence of the whole of this Upanishad. So I had introduced these terms to you before. So we now know we have the 5 sense organs, we have the mind, we have the body with its organs of actions. And so I said, and I gave you a number of terms in the last class about it. So I said that these are all bhautikam. Bhautikam. The body is bhautikam in Sanskrit. Bhautikam means composed of the 5 bhutas. the 5 elements which we described already: Akash, space, Vayu, air, Agni, heat, Apaha, water, Prithvi, earth or minerals. So the body composed of 5 elements. Atma is abhautikam. So it's opposite. Opposite. It is opposite. We say in Sanskrit, vilakshana dharma. Vilakshana dharma. Very different. It is different in nature. It has a nature that is different. So one is bhautikam, composed of elements, made, composed. One is abhautikam. It is non-material. It is non-material. We don't say, and here, I'm getting very strict with Upanishads. From a strictly Upanishadic point of view, we should not even say that Atman is energy, because energy is material. Energy also is bhautikam. We know that matter and energy are convertible. So sometimes we say, Atman is energy. It is not energy, because energy is also bhautikam in our tradition. So body, senses, mind are bhautikam. Atman is abhautikam, non-material. Body, senses, organs of action, mind are achetana, inert, okay, unconscious, inert. Atma is chetana. Very nature is awareness. It's nothing but awareness. So achetana, chetana. Bhautikam, abhautikam. Third, body, senses, mind, thoughts. We say these are drishyatvam. These are objects. They are seen. They can be objectified. They are drishyatvam. Atma is adrishyatvam. Adrishyatvam. It is not an object. It is not an object. It is always the subject. So one is drishyatvam and one is adrishyatvam. Never objectified. Never objectified. So that's 3. Fourth, what is composed of matter, what is inert, what is seen, what can become an object, also has certain characteristics. What characteristics? Form, touch, the characteristics that can be experienced by the senses. It can be seen, it can be tasted, it can be touched, it can be smelled. So it has qualities. So we say it is sagunatvam. Saguna. Saguna means with qualities, with sound, taste, form, smell, sensation, whatever you have. So we say the body composed of matter, inert, is an object, and this object possesses qualities. It is saguna. But Atma has no form. It has no taste. It has no sense. You can't touch it, you can't taste it. You can't smell it, you can't see it. So it's nirgunatvam. Saguna, nirguna. Sagunatvam, nirgunatvam. Fourth. And that which has these qualities, rupa, form, shabda, sound, gandha, smell, etc. These are savikaritvam. Vikara means change. Vikara, savikara. Subject to change. Subject to change. Savikaritvam. That this body and the universe of matter is subject to change. So we say sa means with vikara. Will change. Atma is nirvikara. free from all change. Vikara is change, nirvikara, without change. Savikara, with change. Nirvikara, without change. And then finally, the final quality or characteristic of, whatever is material, the universe, but also, our own bodies. We say that is a term from the Gita. It's agama paitvam. Agama paitvam. It comes and goes. It comes and goes. It's born, it changes, it dies. It doesn't last forever. So it changes, and sometimes the form will change entirely, and it will appear in a new form. So this is called agama paitvam. Comes and goes, but then we add the negative a. So Atma is anagama paitvam. It doesn't come and it doesn't go. It always is. So that which is, in other words, I'm making all of these, giving you these 5 characteristics to help us all understand that which the Upanishad describes as the eye of the eye, the air of the air, the breath of breath, the speech of speech, the mind of the mind, all of these, has opposite characteristics. The characteristics are opposed. The eye of the eye is different from the eye. The air of the air is different from the air, even though it is present intimately in the air, as a result of which you have the confusion. One is taken to be the other. And so this is the misunderstanding that the Rishi here seeks to remove. Now, the teacher in this Upanishad, so remember, go back and think now of the way in which he has answered his student's question. Student asked, what is it that enables me to see here? And as I said before, he doesn't give it a name, but he speaks of it in this very special way. It is the srotrasya srot, from the air of the air, the eye of the eye, and so on. The most important reason that the teacher speaks in this beautiful, profound way. This is not an arbitrary answer. This is an answer that comes from a long tradition of teaching and reflection on how to teach this wisdom, is that he wants to make sure, to ensure, the whole text, in fact, aims at this. If every Upanishad has a sort of a central aim, I will say that Kena Upanishad has this central aim. And the central aim is to ensure that his student does not objectify the Atma, does not think of Atma as an external object, but even more important, does not think of Atma as an internal object. Does not think of Atma as an internal object. Because Atma is not an object. External or internal. If it can be objectified, we are not talking about Atma. But the mind, our minds, because all knowledge is the process of objectification. We know by objectifying. We know by objectifying. That's how we study the world. The whole method of science as a whole, is a method that learns or studies reality through objectification. By making objects, by objectifying realities. Well, even though we use instruments to enhance and to enlarge our capacity to study, we can look at viruses, we can study microbes, but we are still objectifying through enhanced instruments. the subject matter of the Upanishads is the Atma, which cannot be objectified. So if a teacher tells you, I can't say anything more important than this to you this morning. If a teacher tells you to close your eyes and look for the Atma within, and look for the Atma within yourself, as though it is an internal object, then there is a problem. You will not find it. How could you? Because it is you. The awareness because of which even the thought is known is not anything that you can objectify. Here we have to, in a unique way, we have to understand without objectification, without objectifying. So when we speak of awareness, we speak of Atma, don't imagine a form. If we do that, we are objectifying. Don't imagine a shape. Don't imagine a color. Don't imagine a sound. To understand, we have to cease objectifying. And this is what the teacher is trying throughout this text by describing this reality in the language of srotrasya srotram manaso manoyad vacho havacham sa upranasya prana. Atman is not, and there's a, so you can see the problem also. Atma, as I said, we will be misled if we think of it as an object within us, outside us or within us. Therefore, we must avoid, with the teacher, you will see this text never uses that language. No Upanishad uses that language. Atman is not something that we have. We don't use the possessive pronoun for Atma. When we say, my Atma, in that very expression itself, there is an objectification. The one who is making that statement is Atma. Atman is not what we have. Atma is what we are. It's a very big difference. Atma is not what we have, because then the question arises, who has Atman? Atman is not what we have. Atma is what we are. The eye of the eye is not something that we possess. The eye of the eye is what you are, what I am, what everyone is. So my Atma is a unless you really know what you are speaking about, unless your understanding is clear, it could be a really problematic way of teaching or speaking about this truth. And this teacher does not speak in those terms. It's something that I really want you to understand as clearly as possible. Atma is not something that you have. Atma is what you are, what you are. And therefore, this is why, it's not an easy word to translate, this word Atma. Because sometimes, some would say, translate Atma as soul, but then you get into the problems of soul being used with the possessive pronoun, my soul, may your soul, and so on. And so language can mislead. Language can confuse. And this is why, when we teach, we have to be so careful with the words that we use. Words are very important. Words can illumine. and words can conceal, and words can mislead, and words can add to avidya and not liberate from avidya. So why is the wise person described in the conclusion of this verse as becoming immortal, as you say, Amrita Bhavanti, as a result of understanding the difference between Atma and Anatma? The reason is very simple, and it was given in the 5 characteristics that I discussed with you a few minutes ago. One of the characteristics of the body, the senses, the mind is it is vikara, it's subject to change, it's subject to time. Agama paina, it comes and it goes. The answer is that all the objects of awareness, having these 5 characteristics that I described, all of the objects are subject to time and to change. Atma is not. Atma is not. It's very simple. Atma is not. Atma is not subject to time, is not subject to change. It is, in Sanskrit we say, it is trikale apitishtati, that which can be obtained, that which is in all periods of time. Trikale, in 3 periods of time, past, present, future. That which abides in all 3 periods of time is Atma. Trikale apitishtati, iti Atma is how Shankara defines Atma in actually in Tattva Bodh, one of his very famous texts. You know, it's like it's a full moon night, and you know, let us say you have a nice bucket of water, and you put it outside of your house, and then the beautiful full moon is reflected in the bucket of water. And then you put your hands in the bucket of water and you stir the water up. And this beautiful reflection of the moon begins to move. You know, the moon looks as though it's subject to the waves that you've created in the bucket when the moon is completely free. You know, so because the moon is associated with the body, and so the Atman is associated with the body, like, this is just a metaphor, an analogy, but it's helpful. The Atman is associated with the body as, you know, the moon in the reflected water. Itself doesn't move, doesn't change. The water changes. And if you don't understand the difference, then you would attribute the movement of the water to Atma. And so the body ages, you know, the body is subject to change, the body is subject to disease and to death. It's born, it grows, it changes, it declines, it dies. This is, you know, the famous example of Sri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. But it is a step in thinking. You know, the body ages, but it is a step in thinking to say, you know, the body is 50 years old. I am 50 years old. So now you're saying Atma is 50 years old. It's like the moon and its reflection. That's a conclusion. It's a conclusion born out of the identity of Atman. It doesn't take a lot of reflection to understand that my body may be 50 years old, but I, the Chetna Atma, the conscious Atma that I am, is not 50 years old. Only if I attribute age, the age of the body to the age of the Atma, then I become 50 years old, or I become whatever the body is. So, in fact, you know, the Amrita Bhavanti, the gain of immortality that is discussed here in this verse is, again, understand this clearly. It is not that we become immortal. You know, it is not that the mortal becomes immortal. See this very clearly. It is not that which is mortal is transformed into something that is immortal. It is like this. It is the immortal which thought of itself as mortal, discovering its nature, which is Amrita. It's a difference. In one case, that which is mortal becomes immortal, which in our tradition is not possible. In another case is that which is always immortal is taken to be mortal and now awakens to its immortal nature. It is not born, as Gita says, na jayate, namriyate, va kadachin, at no time. Nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuyaha, ajo, unborn, nitya, eternal, ashashvata, unending, nahanyate hanyamane sharire. It does not end when the body ends. This is the Amrita that the Rishi is speaking here about. This is Amrita Bhavanti that we are asked to understand. And so I will stop here. I want to honor the commitment, and let me see. Was one question, what is the unit of Chetna? Is it what we normally refer to as Atma? Yes, so Chetana, which is, as I said, is awareness or consciousness, is the very nature of Atma. We must be also clear about this, that when we describe the Atma as Chetana or awareness, we are not saying that there is something called Atma that has awareness as a quality. Because I've already said, Atma is not saguna. It is not something that has a quality. Awareness is Atma, the very nature of Atma. It is Atma Swabhava. It is the very nature. Swabhava is nature. It is Atma Swabhava. Atma Swabhava is Chetana, is awareness. So we will not use the word unit. We will not say the word, we will not use the word unit of consciousness. We would say it is Chetana, it is awareness, it is very conscious. It is consciousness itself. Because why I'm saying we will not use the term unit is that because in the Upanishads, in Bhagavad Gita, consciousness, though this Atma, is avibhakta. It is indivisible. It can't be broken down into smaller units. It is avibhakta. Again, we can add to matter that we describe with 5 characteristics, you remember. I know some of you are taking notes, but Arunji will post again the lectures. We can add, in fact, another quality that comes out of this question, which is, we can say matter is vibhakta. It can be broken down into smaller and smaller categories. That's what we do, We want to study matter, we break it down into units, into smaller and smaller qualities, because it is vibhakta, it is divisible, right? It has units. So we do atoms and molecules and protons and neutrons. That's called vibhakta, breaking down something into its constituent elements. But when it comes to this Chetana Atma, we say it is avibhakta. Avibhakta means it is indivisible. It cannot be broken into finer and smaller particles, or finer and smaller unity. It is a whole, it's Purna. Huh? The beautiful mantra we have also comes to this. Purna. Was Purna, it is Purna, it will always be Purna. Purna madaf, Purna midam, Purnat Purna mudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya, Purnameva avashishyate. So it's Chetana Atma is indivisible. We must always understand that. It can't be broken down. And this is why it's also timeless. That which is subject to time can be divided. That which is timeless is also indivisible. It is Purna. Okay, so let us, I even already chanted the mantra that I close with, but I ask all of you to chant with me, Purna Madaf. It's an appropriate mantra coming out of the question, so we will close with that mantra. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnaat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So may God, Bhagavan, keep all of you safe and well, and may the blessings of our teachers, our great gurus, be with us all, and may they lead us from untruth to truth. Asato ma sad sangamaya, and we will continue in 2 weeks' time our study. Keep well and stay safe, everyone.